Hello, guys. Welcome to this episode of The Unravel. Recently, I think sometime early this year or earlier this year, I went to bed sometime about 1 a.m. or so. For some reason, I was up late that night. And while I laid on my bed, I had this very strong and stern instruction bust in my spirit. And it was simple. It is stay with what stays. And the moment it hit my spirit, I knew that God was up to something. I couldn't tell exactly the parameters, the length and the depth of what it meant, but I knew it meant something. So I quickly grabbed my phone and wrote it down. Stay with what stays. And that's going to be basically what we're talking about today. Stay with what stays. I just want to share with us some of my meditation as I pondered on this very stern prophetic instruction. What does it mean to stay with what stays? And one of the things that I realized is that to uncover a level of advantage, to build a remarkable life, it goes beyond how well you can do it to how long you can do it. I'll say that again. To build a remarkable life, to have a remarkable success, it goes beyond how well you can do it to how long you can do it. In many cases, when we try to showcase ourselves, our skill, our successes, we reveal how well a thing can be done. I don't want to say that everybody can do it well, but it's not the greatest virtue just to be able to do it well. The real virtue is doing it long enough. What is your staying capacity in that very thing that you're doing well? An interesting scripture comes to mind when an instruction was given to the disciples, tarry ye in Jerusalem until you are endued with power from on high. That word tarry, just wait here, stay here until you are endued with power from on high. And it reveals to me that there is certain endowments, certain deposits, certain graduations in power, in success, that only comes by how well you can tarry here. And we live in a roaming generation, a generation where there is this sudden need for people to keep roaming. I'm using the word roaming very intentionally and not progress. You can move in a very steady, progressive way. But what I say in our time is a lot of roaming. People are just roaming from ideas to ideas, roaming from job to job, roaming from church to church, roaming from one online prayer group to another online prayer group, roaming from one, just roaming from one business idea to another business idea. Entrepreneurs doing everything always because there is a roaming spirit. We are lacking the ability to stay. And you see that playing out also in marriages. The divorce rates are so high because people keep roaming around. You may do it well once. It's credible. But what will give birth to real virtue is how long you can do it. Let me say this again. The first point is that it's not just about how well you can do it, but how long you can do it. The second thing here is that sometimes the only way to do it well enough is to do it long enough. So first is that it's not always how well you can do it, but it's for how long you can do it. Number two here is that to do it well enough, sometimes you must do it long enough. So it is good to do it well enough, but many times to do it well enough, you must do it long enough. There are things in our lives that we're not doing well enough only because we're not doing them long enough. And this goes from your school to your marriage to your business. If you want to do it well enough, you may have to stay long enough, do it long enough, enjoy it long enough, suffer it long enough to be able to do it well enough. So many times we judge ourselves too quickly in marriage, in friendship, in businesses. The things that we are calling failed businesses have only seemed to have appeared like they are failing because we didn't wait long enough. Sometimes, when you start a thing like a business, a relationship, all the hurdles that you face at the cradle of that experience that seems very unpleasant or looks like they are unsuccessful, those are the things that qualify the legitimacy of the things that you're doing. That it doesn't look like it's working may be the only proof that it's something that can work. You see that now? But to really see the true potential in what you're doing, you may have to stay there long enough. So back to the instruction. Stay with what stays. So I wrote this down. I said, it is good to come into it, but real virtue is staying in it. It is good to come into it, but the real virtue is staying in it, be it wealth, health, peace, or success, or marriage. Many of us want to come into marriage. Many of us want to come into wealth. Many of us want to come into health. But the real deal is not just coming into wealth, coming into money, coming into success. The real deal is staying in wealth, staying in health, staying in peace, and staying in the marriage. So even the weddings that we've seen happen so glamorously, and then 3 months afterwards there's a divorce, is because people are not willing to stay in it long enough. They want to come into it, have it in their portfolio that I've been married or I am married, but are you willing to stay? Are you willing to stay? Now, there are three sides of it. I'm going to touch it as a few days ago, before I get into that, a few days ago, I was watching a video, and it was a message by Apostle Arome Osai. And he said something very profound. He said that life is a marathon and not a sprint. Success is a marathon and not a sprint. Many of us want to run fast because we think that life is a sprint. But life most times comes as a marathon. So it's not about how fast you can run. It's how long you can endure running. So you need to understand that your speed, however important it is, won't take you far enough if your endurance cannot match it. So I would rather move at a speed that can afford me endurance than attain a speed that is void of endurance. Most of the things that you need in your life will come by how long you can stay. So back to the instruction is stay with what stays. As I was meditating on stay with what stays, I unraveled 3 dimensions. The first dimension is stay, which is the actual doing of the staying. The second dimension is the objective of staying, the reason for staying, the motive for staying. So you have to stay. Number 2, there is the objective, which is the reason for staying. And then the third dimension is the object for which you are staying. So I want us to break it down into these 3 dimensions. The first is stay. So when you hear tarry in Jerusalem until you are endued with power from on high, the first thing is tarry. However you want to look at it, there must be a staying. You have to wait. You have to stay long enough. Stay, enduring enough. There is the staying, and the generation that we live in must begin to build the internal capacity to stay in spite of your emotion, in spite of how you've been hurt, in spite of the disadvantages, in spite of what seems to be failing, you must have a staying capacity. You must have the willingness, the ability to stay on that job, stay in that marriage, stay as a parent, stay. So let me say this to you. There is a need to build an internal capacity. It must become something that you intentionally build. Staying does not always come naturally. The human nature tends to just want to move around, and we assume that every movement is progress. I've said before, you've heard me say before, that to make progress, you must move, but not every movement equals progress. When you're driving in a city, for example, Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, Makurdi, and you come by a traffic light, in many cases, you may be required to stop when the traffic light shows red. Even though you stopped moving, you have not stopped making progress, because the traffic light that shows you the red sign to stop is trying to keep you safe on that journey. So even when you are not moving, you are making progress. The key here is to keep making progress. And one of the ways in making progress is building an internal capacity to stay on the business idea that you have begun. It's not looking like it's working now, but you've got to stay. On the job you just got, your boss seems to hate you, but you have to stay. In the marriage you just walked into, it looks like he's not what you thought he should be, but have you stayed long enough? Number two on staying is that most of the advantages of life are unlocked only in time. So you may not see it now, does not mean that it isn't there. If you walk into a room by 7 p.m. at night and there isn't any light at all, it may seem as though the room is void of value, void of elegance, void of virtue. But if you wait in that room till 7 a.m. in the morning, it becomes clear to you all the potential that there is in the room that was existing when you came in 12 hours before. It only took time for the things to be revealed to you. Many times in life, virtues are concealed in dark places, and you have to wait long enough for the day to break. And when the day breaks, joy comes in the morning. Even if weeping may endure for the night, you've got to endure the weeping to embrace the joy that comes in the morning. Many of you can't wait through the night, and that's why you keep missing out on the joy that comes in the morning. So you must first tarry. The first dimension of this instruction is your capacity to tarry. You must kill that tendency of joining the bandwagon of the roaming generation and become the staying generation. Even when you learn to pray, sometimes when you're beginning your journey in prayer and you pray for 5 minutes, it looks like you've prayed too long. But just stay there. Stay there. Look at your time, it's 5 minutes. Oh my goodness. But stay there. 10 minutes. Oh my goodness. But stay there. If you do it long enough, you can unlock portals of favor, portals of miracles, but it's still around your staying capacity. The number two dimension of this instruction is the objective for staying. Tarry in Jerusalem until you are endued with power. There must be an intention. There must be a clear aim. Do not stay aimlessly. So even if you need to stay, even if you need to wait, you must be objective about it. You must be intentional about it. Why are you tarrying in your Jerusalem? So many of us are not tarrying. We are idling away. And we're saying that, Apeh, you said we should stay, so I'm just staying. No. When you stay, you must stay with very clear intention with very clear objectives. Staying is not an excuse to be aimless. When you tarry in Jerusalem, it is to be endued with power. There is a clear objective, a clear motive, a clear intention, a clear desire, a clear instruction that is funding your staying. So when you're staying in the marriage, in the business, whatever it is you're staying in, stay with intention, stay with objective, stay with a clear goal. Is that okay? Number two, when you stay, you must stay progressively. Because there's a very thin line between staying and wasting. Many of you, when we come to the last dimension, you see what I'm talking about here. Many of you have stayed in an abusive relationship. You've stayed in a wasteful land. You've stayed in a wasteful state. And you've lost every motivation to move. You are not staying because there's a goal to achieve. You are staying because there's no vision for where to move to. And that in itself is a problem. You must build the capacity to see ahead. Because that you're staying doesn't mean that we should applaud you, because sometimes the staying is leading to wasting. Many times, a very thin line between staying and wasting. We are staying in places that the Lord doesn't intend for us to stay in because we don't have clear objective. When you want to stay, occupy till I come, you want to make sure that there's a clear vision why I'm occupying, why I'm laboring here. Why are you staying? What is your objective for staying? It is good to stay. It is good to endure. But there is an objective for every stay that validates the stay. So number two element here is to have the objective for staying. And then lastly, as we bring this to a close, is the object for stay. Many have stayed, but many of them do not know what to stay with. The instruction from the onset is stay with what stays. So let me give you an instance. People have gone into businesses and the only object that keeps them to stay is the profit. People have gone into marriages and the only thing that keeps them to stay, the object for which they stay, is love making. I don't use any other word. Many people have taken jobs and the only thing that makes them to stay is the size of their salary. So they may have some sense of objective, some sense of intention when they took in the job, got married, or whatever it is they're doing. But the actual object that is sponsoring that intention, tarry in Jerusalem so you can be endued with power. In some cases, we are enduring because we want to be endued with power. Sometimes we are enduring because we want to be endued with fame. Sometimes we are enduring because we want to be endued with something to show that proves that I'm doing better than you are doing. So when you are staying and you have some sense of objective, you want to also check the object of the objective. What is it in your marriage that's really keeping you? Is it a sex life? Some of us have gotten married, and what was the object in view was her body shape, her bust, her shape. What you don't realize is that the shape may not stay. If you must stay, make sure that the object for which you're staying is also an object that has the capacity to stay. If you are making money just for money, money doesn't stay. You must have a higher value, way higher than money, for which is your strong motivation for earning money. If you have a job and your only object for staying on that job is your salary, then you're wasting your life. There must be something that the job is about that is way more important than salary. There is a blessedness to work. If I have a job for the blessing of the ability to work is a more honorable reason than just salary. Do I say you shouldn't have good salary? You should have good salary. Do I say you shouldn't get married to a woman that pleasures you? You should do that. But many things that we look out for in attaining pleasure, they don't stay. They don't stay. So when you find the object for which you stay, make sure that what you are looking at as the object for staying has the capacity to also stay. So I'll say this to you. Endure for things that endure. Please write that down. When you want to endure for things that endure. Your wife is more than her body. Your husband is more than his salary. Your children are more than their school results. You've got to look for the things that can truly stay. What are the things in your life that can endure? Those are the things you should stay with. So, if you must endure for what endures. If you must stay on a job, stay in a marriage. Endure for what endures. And back to the instruction. Stay with what stays. Make sure that you don't waste your staying on something that doesn't stay. If you must stay with what stays. Thank you very much. We love you. See you on the next one.